Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to talk getting started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and today we're going to take a look at the Idoneth Deepkin, and in particular, the Nautilar sub-faction. In this video, we're going to go through and talk about exactly what we get playing a Nautilar sub-faction army of the Idoneth Deepkin, what makes it special, and then we'll take a look at some units we can use to start off our Nautilar army with before looking at other units to bring in as some support for those units after those initial purchases are made. With that said, at the end of the video, we'll give you a little sample army list for you to use as some inspiration for creating your own Idoneth Deepkin Nautilar army. And so, with that, let's talk about what makes Nautilar special. So obviously, it's an Idoneth Deepkin sub-faction. You can find all the rules for this sub-faction inside Battle Tome Idoneth Deepkin. What makes this special is, first of all, you can carry out a special monstrous rampage with friendly Leviathans in this sub-faction. So instead of using any other monstrous rampage you would normally use, you can choose to use this one instead, which changes the rend characteristic of your Leviathan's massive scythe thins and crushing jaws to rend -3 until the end of the next combat phase. So really turns up the damage on a Leviathan available to you. Not to mention you can have another one still using Roar, another one using Stomp, another one even still using Titanic Duel. Now, on top of this, obviously, we've got something for Leviathans here. They make Leviathans Battle Line, which is just amazing. Having Battle Line Leviathans is ridiculously cool. You want to run an army of giant turtles smashing across the table, then this sub-faction is for you. So with that said, let's look at how we begin this for. And so, to get started with, an Achillean King is the way to go, I think, for starting out with this particular army. He gets some bonuses that he can give out to other Achillean units around him with his Achillean Paragon rule, where he adds 1 to hit rolls made with melee weapons by friendly Achillean units, excluding their mounts, wholly within 9 inch of this unit. That does mean it affects the Achillean Leviathan, although it only does affect the rider. It doesn't actually give them to the mounts of the unit. But he's also got some other cool abilities where once per battle, at the end of your charge phase, you can pick up to D3 friendly Idoneth Deepkin units, wholly within 12 inch, and any other friendly units with this ability. If you do so, until the end of that turn, you can have those units affected by High Tide. So you can get an additional High Tide in there as well, which is really cool. Now, he does put out a decent amount of punch himself. 3 attacks, 3s and 2s, rend -2, damage 2 with that bladed polearm, or you can choose to go with the greatsword for 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend -1, damage 2. And then he's got a couple of extra profiles on there for some nice D3 damage and 2 damage attacks coming out of his Deep Mare as well, his weird seahorse mount. Now, obviously, the place to start with this army is going with the Achillean Leviathan as your battle line option to begin with. 500 points. You're not going to get an awful lot else in this army with the Leviathan in it, but Leviathans do pack an absolute punch. Their Crushing Jaws, 2 attacks, which will hit on a nice 2+ while they're undamaged. 2s to wound, -2 rend, damage 3, remembering that punches up to -3 when you're using the cool monstrous rampage. And then you've got 4 attacks at its side thins. Once again, these will be rend 3 when you use that nice special monstrous rampage. 2s, 3s, rend -1 standard, but 3 if you're using the monstrous rampage, and damage 4. On top of that, you've got, 6 extra attacks at 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, which will get +1 to hit near your Achillean King because of the Achillean attacks. And you've got your Razor Shell Harpoon launches for 8 shots, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage D3. So a pretty decent shoot coming out of that as well. Now we then have the Jaws of Death as well, where each time you roll a 6 to hit with those Crushing Jaws, it just does a flat, nice, big 6 mortal wounds instead of the 3 damage, and the attack sequence just ends. So nice big splash damage there. And then the Void Drum as well will add 1 to the save rolls targeting friendly Idoneth Deepkin units that have a wounds characteristic of 8 or less within 12 inch of your Leviathans as well. And he also does impact hits as well with his Crushing Charge, so potentially taking using of the monstrous rampage. If you choose to do Stomp, you will get D6 mortal wounds on a 2+ instead of the normal D3. So, 2 Leviathans in this particular army. You can have 1 going with the extra damage, but 1 can do D6 mortal wounds with Stomp instead. Both of which I think are very nice abilities. Now, where to next? Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of points to play. So there are 3 units really I would consider in your initial purchase to pick up and be your other battle line option. Now, it is said that, first of all, the problem with the Achillean Alapex, which is the one I'm going to talk about first of all, is he can't be battle line. So this is going to be harder to make a legal 1,000-point army using the Alapex. But the Alapex is nice. It's a shark. It's got a nice 6 attacks with barbed, hooked, and blades, 3 3s, no rend damage 1, and it's ferocious bite at 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2, damage 2. He's pretty solid. But really, where I think we come into it is picking between Morsar and Ishlayan Guard. So the big difference here between the two, Ishlayan Guard are widely referred to as defensive eels, and Morsar Guard are widely referred to as offensive eels. What they do should be pretty self-explanatory here. You've got Morsar Guard, which are going to do more combat damage. They get extra damage on the charge. And they also have their Biovoltic Blast, where they can do it once per game, Mortal Wound Splash. But then you have the Ishlayan Guard, which have their cool rules like the Biovoltic Barrier, where when they charge, they'll get a save of 3+ rather than 4+, which is really nice. And they also ignore positive and negative modifiers to their saves regardless as well. So, for me, I think I do prefer Ishlayan Guard as a second battle line option for this army, just because you are that little bit more flimsy. So having something that's a little bit more survivable, I think, is the way to go. Lastly, if you're wanting to add some difference to your army, I think the other way to go about this is certainly adding in something like an Eidolon Mathland. It's a really cool miniature. It keeps with that nice sort of big model feel you have. And you can take a couple of different variations. You can take the Aspect of the Sea or the Aspect of the Storm. One of them is a combat option. One of them is more a wizard option, though they both can do all right in combat, which is pretty cool. And then you've got other cool abilities on them as well, where you can sort of give extra bravery to friendly Idoneth Deepkin units around them, which is cool. And they've got some really nice, useful spells as well. I also really like the Storm as well, where he adds 1 to wound rolls for melee attacks, wholly within 12-inch for Idoneth Deepkin units around him as well. With this all said though, let's take a look at how we can put this all into practice. And so here we have our little sample army list coming in at 945 points out of the available 1,000. Now, the thing we've gone for here is we've got our grand strategy being no place for the weak, destroying our enemy's battle line. This should be pretty easy with that Leviathan in the army. Now, Triumph as well, because we've got a pretty good chance here with 55 points under. We've gone for +1 to wound. I think this is really useful. And then into our leaders, we've got an Achillean King. He's going to be our general with a bladed polearm. And then we've got the command trait Unstoppable Fury, where while this general is affected by the High Tide, remembering he can be affected twice by this over the course of the game, in your High Tide turn and in the turn where he uses his cool ability. For each enemy unit within 3 inches of them, or when they fight in the fight phase, you can add 2 to the attack characteristic of their melee weapons until the end of that phase. So you can punch out a ton of damage twice per game. His Armorous the Thigh is a really nice artifact for some defensive benefit as well. This stops any abilities that would target him triggering on the effect of a 6, so like mortal wounds or exploding attacks on a 6 don't work when targeting this model. Battle line wise, we've gone for the Ishlayan Guard. Now, at current, they've released an FAQ currently where they've said your attack resets if you put on any sort of resetting characteristics. So I think the Ishlayan Guard take everything a little bit better at the moment. They're a bit easier to use. But we've also got that Achillean Leviathan in there as well, where we've got the mount trait Denizens of the Dark Depths, where we reduce, or rather make our opponents -1 to wound if they're hitting our Leviathan with damage 1 attacks. You have ways you can get rid of rend 1 on your Leviathan, but I think that's just easily sort of countered by playing, your defensive benefits on the army. Now, we've then got Bounty Hunters as our battalion, putting our Ishlayan Guard and Achillean Leviathans in there for +1 damage against any Galatian veterans. We have no Galatian veterans in this army, but I don't really think that's too much of an issue when we can pack out some serious damage coming from those Leviathans and Ishlayan Guard. With that said, like I said, 945 points out of 1,000, no reinforced units and no allies. 35 wounds is really light on wounds, no doubt about it, and 3 drops, but this is a nice, fun Idoneth Deepkin list. You play this at 1,500, you throw in another Leviathan, which is awesome. That's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, drop us a comment down below in the comment section and let us know what you enjoyed about the video and what you'd like to see more of on the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here we have at Sinful Gaming, you can do so on our Discord server, which is linked in the video's description. Also linked in the video's description is our Patreon and YouTube members where you can go to help support the channel and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. As a special thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons, Christian Weir, Soren, Greenskins Gaming, Kenny Lower, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ant, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek and Giapi390, and to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Ronya, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, and Monty's Tabletop Terrain. And lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now, everyone.